Hey everyone! So for this video, I wanted to go through all the books that I've managed to read so far this year, just to, I don't know, chat through some recent reads. Not so recent, since we're already in July, but still. So Goodreads is telling me I've read 24 books so far. So yeah, I think we're just gonna start with the first book, which is Factfulness by Hans Rosling. This is definitely one that stands out from what I read usually. This is a non-fiction book about the world, progress, and our instincts, and how these instincts influence the way we perceive the world. So basically, Hans Rosling with Anna and Ola Rosling created this book in which these deceptions that we have about the world are explored. So they did a bunch, actually, a lot of questionnaires on different topics ranging from equality to poverty through like electricity and access to water. For example, they would ask how many people live in poverty, and many people, actually most of them, would get the questions wrong because we have such a negative view of the world due to media, due to our instincts that lead us to have a certain image about the situation. What was I talking about? So basically, we have such a negative view of the world that we cannot imagine that we're actually making progress. It was very informative, a very good read. It was something I struggled a bit through. Got a bit repetitive at times, in my opinion, but in general, I would really recommend it if you are into psychology a bit, but also kind of social studies maybe, and just interested generally into what's going on in the world, in different parts of the world, in different areas and fields of study. I would recommend it. The next book I read is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and this is the first book in a trilogy, I think. It's a YA murder mystery novel. So we follow a character who goes to a school for like talented kids, and her talent is that she's really good with murderers and murder mysteries and solving them. Basically crimes, anything like that. She loves that. And there was a crime at the school decades ago that has not been solved, involving the owner's daughter, I think. Never mind, but she is trying to figure it out. So we are following like two different timelines, and we're trying to figure out the murder with her and the whole case. That's like unsolved, and it's a mystery, and it's really confusing. But I don't really like this book that much. I enjoyed the crime aspect of it and trying to solve it, the murder with the characters, but other than that, everything felt very flat and a bit forced to me, and I did not enjoy it that much, which is a bit of a disappointment since many people just loved this book, but I guess it just wasn't for me. The next book is, oh, I have that book. I don't know how to read that. Wondersmith? Wondersmith. Yeah. By Jessica Townsend, which is book 2 to The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. So I thought this was going to be a duology, but apparently it's a trilogy. And when I got to the end of this book, the second book, I was like, well, what's going on here? I'm really confused, but I think we're getting a third one next year. Yeah, we are. So that's really nice because honestly, this series is so amazing and so adorable and just such a great thing to read. Basically, we follow a girl who was cursed that she's gonna die on the day of her 11th birthday, I think. Yeah, I remembered that. I'm so proud of myself. So she's been cursed for every bad thing that happened in her city because she's like this cursed child and no Harry Potter reference intended. And on the day of her supposed death, she's actually taken to this magical land of Nevermore that is so insane, but in such a good way. And I loved reading about the magical system, which is like a mess, but the best mess ever. And we follow her as she's trying to become part of this society, elite society that kind of controls this whole world. It's really fun. It's like so warm and It feels like going home in this very weird way, even though I read this book just once. It was so lovely and heartwarming, and it felt perfect in every way. So yeah, would really, really recommend this one if you're into this type of stuff. Okay, so the next book it says I read is a book I read for my Polish class that has no English translation, and I actually really don't want to talk about it. So we're moving on to book number 5, which is Vicious by V. Schwab that I hauled, but let me explain. I love V. Schwab and her writing style and the way in which she crafts characters in the world. It's so believable and so insanely amazing. But I just didn't like this book as much as I thought. I don't know what sort of expectation I had. It was phenomenal, and I know that. But, it just didn't click with me perfectly. But let me tell you what this book is about, because the concept is amazing. So we follow these 2 characters that are kind of really dark, and they're trying to become superheroes. In order to gain some sort of superpower, you have to have a near-death experience. So these 2 characters are doing all they can to have a near-death experience that won't kill them, basically, because they want superpowers. And we follow this part of the story and also the part of the story in which one of the characters is chasing this friend because they actually hate each other right now, and we're trying to figure out why it would happen, what's going on, and it's this constant shift back and forth between timelines, and it's so well written. I cannot emphasize it enough. And the fact I do not love it as much as I wanted to does not take away from how amazingly written this book is. It was just so well thought through. It was great. Just read it, please. The next book I picked up was The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, which I was very happy about because it's one of those books I felt I really need to read before I die. So this book is a YA historical fiction in which we follow our main character who lives in Nazi Germany during World War II, and we follow her as she's growing up and making friends, or trying to. It sounds like a very poignant and beautifully written book, and that is exactly what it is, especially that it's written from the perspective of death, which I thought was so original and unique, and this is actually what sold me on the concept. I just needed to see how this was executed, and I really, really fell in love with this book and with the characters, and it was very, very well written, and I really, really recommend it as the type of book you just need to try to read. So these flowers here keep on touching my hair, and it's really weird because they pull at it. The next book that I got to is actually a graphic novel by Alice Oseman, and that's Heartstopper. And I'll just talk about volumes 1, 2, 3 at once. This is a graphic novel in which we follow Nick and Charlie, who are the most sweet and adorable characters ever. We follow them through high school, and we follow them as they start falling in love with each other, and it's so sweet and adorable, and they're so funny. Genuinely, I laughed out loud so many times reading these books. It's such a fun, adorable read that I really, really love it. It became one of my favorite books of all time because I had so much fun with these. The next book I read was The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur, which is a poetry collection that I think I did talk about. I know that the opinions on Rupi Kaur's writing can get very controversial because I read some people just don't consider it poetry at all. Some love it. I guess that's just the case with modern poetry. But I belong to the group that thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually think that what's beautiful in her collections, I also read Milk and Honey a few years ago. I think what's beautiful is that the poems just work together so well, and they are divided into sections. So it says in Goodreads that The Sun and Her Flowers is a journey of wilting, falling, rooting, rising, and blooming, a celebration of life in all its forms. That is exactly what it is, and I could not have said it better. I just found it to be very beautifully written, and it really touched me in this way that only poetry can. So I was really amazed by this book. The next book I read was V.E. Schwab's A Conjuring of Light, which is the third and final book in a Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. That is my favorite trilogy of all time. I love this world. I've talked about this book so much that I'm just gonna quickly tell you. So there are 4 Londons: grey, red, white, black, and each is in a different relationship with magic. So red is the one that's doing best, and black is the one that's dead. White is the one that has lots of issues with power and monarchy because kings are dead like every day or something. And then it's our London, which kind of sucks, but we don't have magic and it still sucks. And we follow a character who is from Red London, and he's smuggling things between the Londons because he can travel between them, and he smuggles an object from Black London, and he shouldn't have done that. And things get crazy from there and escalate really quickly, and we follow a bunch of adorable, lovely, fun characters that are amazing as they try to save the world. I did my best to explain it quickly because I know I take too much time doing that. I love this. What can I say? I waited so long to read this book because I really did not want this to be over. This amazing adventure that I loved and that gave me so much comfort to read about. It was just great. If you have not tried this trilogy, if you have not given it a chance, I think you should. I think it's really great. The next book I read is Again, but Better by Christine Riccio. I feel like there are so many good books and I just keep on saying, oh, this is amazing, I loved it. But you know what? I loved it. Anyways, you know how sometimes something comes to you at the perfect moment in your life and it has a message that you need just right now, just in this moment. I hope you know what that means, because that was the case with this book. In this book, we follow a girl who has been doing college wrong, as she calls it. And it basically means she hasn't been doing what she wants to do, but what her parents expect her to do. And she hasn't been making friends, having fun, doing fun stuff, and she feels like she's behind socially. And so she decides to try again. She goes to the UK and takes a writing course to start living a life that she wants, and things go wrong again. And there's this fun twist with some magic involved, which I don't want to spoil. I was not expecting it at all. But for the most part, it's a contemporary novel about dealing with people's expectations of you and trying to lay out your own path instead of following one that people expect you to follow. The book I read, or listened to actually, afterwards is The Things We Lost in a Fire by Mariana Enriquez. And this collection of short stories is related to Argentina, but I felt it commented on a lot of social problems that are international, which was very interesting to read about. I don't really know how to explain this book. It felt very unique to me, maybe because I just haven't really reached out for different genres from different parts of the world. I recommended this book to my friend, and I don't think the word like or enjoy fits particularly well this book, but it definitely gives you a lot of material to think about, and I just thought that was great. It was a great experience. Next, I listened to Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire, and this is a book I heard about a lot and never really heard anything in specific. It's just always mentioned somewhere in the back, but I feel like nobody talks about it really. And that's a pity because I feel like this is a great novella series thing that's very interestingly, is that a word? It's done in an interesting way. The whole idea of this world is that there are doors to different worlds through which kids can go to get to a world that fits them perfectly, that was designed for them. So everyone basically has a door through which they can go to escape the world, and in which they can find themselves and be who they want to be without any restrictions. There's this home for wayward children, which is the place where these kids who come back from the world, which is not always the case, but when it is, they can't cope with living in a reality that does not accept them anymore and in which they feel alien and isolated and unhappy, and it's a home for them, and it's a place where they try to cope with going back and the idea that they may never return to this perfect world. And as I was discovering more about this world, I felt more and more charmed by it. It felt like Alice in Wonderland in this more creepy way. And I thought it's a middle grade, but it feels more like YA. So just a little note there. I listened to it when I was really bored and had to wait for something, and I had like 4 hours and I didn't know what to do. And the audiobook lasted like 5 hours or something, I think, and it was just a perfect way to pass time. So I would definitely recommend this series if you're looking for little quick reads that are kind of really fast-paced, really beautifully written, and tons of fun. The next read I had is The Diary of a Bookseller by Shawn Bythell. This is a book I started like 2 years ago, I think, on holiday because I had nothing to read. I eventually finished it on audiobook, but it was nice. It really was. This is a journal of a guy who works in Scotland, in Wigtown, in a bookstore, a secondhand bookstore, and basically he just talks about working there, what it's like to deal with customers of different sorts and types with their questions and what sort of problems he has. Just the everyday life of him working in a bookstore. And I'm really happy because when I finished this book, I realized I'm gonna miss these people. I don't want to say like characters because these are people, like actual people, but I'm gonna miss them. I need more from these bookstore adventures, and there's actually book 2 coming out, so I'm very excited about that. Or maybe it's out already. Anyways, exciting news. The next book I read was Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, and I must tell you, this was amazing. And why did I not start reading graphic novels earlier? Because I was missing out on a lot. Whatever I say about this book, it will not do it justice because it's just so funny and adorable sometimes, but also full of action. In the back, it says a sidekick and supervillain Nimona and Lord Blackheart are about to wreak some serious havoc. Their mission proves to the kingdom that Sir Ambrosius Goldenloin and his buddies at the Institution of Law Enforcement and Heroics aren't the heroes everyone thinks they are. Nemesis, dragons, science, symbolism, all these and more await in this brilliantly subversive, sharply irreverent epic from Noelle Stevenson, based on her award-winning webcomic. Just read it. Just try it. Just give it a go. It's great. I love it. I love it so much that I just instantly after I finished it, I went to Noelle Stevenson's page and looked for everything she's ever done because I really enjoyed this. And yeah, it was great. It was fun, entertaining, and it was everything I wanted and ever needed. Next, I read The Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which, once again, I feel like I've talked so much. So, just quickly telling you what it's about. It's about a girl that she's useless, and turns out she can save the world in the kingdom, which is divided by this big patch of dark land that nobody can get through, and she is the key to success. We are in the Grishaverse, which is a great universe with people who have magical powers of different sorts. The end. Great story. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. I don't think 10 out of 10, like 8 out of 10 actually. Next, I have 2 books by Oscar Wilde, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray and The Importance of Being Earnest. I realized that I really like Oscar Wilde's writing style. It's just very witty and smart and sarcastic at times. Or maybe I'm getting it all wrong, but I really enjoyed these books. And The Picture of Dorian Gray is about a guy that has his portrait painted, and instead of this guy, that's Dorian Gray, the portrait is aging and it's carrying all the marks of his immoralities and life, and Dorian Gray just remains the same. It's a great story about morality and what a person can turn into if the consequences of their deeds are not shown on them, are not marked. And the importance of being earnest, I don't really remember what it's about. It was so ironical. We follow 2 characters who are doing this weird thing where they pretend that they have some sick person somewhere to escape from their realities of everyday life, and they just go to this secret place. I don't know how to explain this because I don't remember how they got into this crazy situation, but they both like fall in love and they keep on lying, and it's just very ironical and very fun, that's the word I'm gonna use. Then I read the second book in this Wayward Children series, Down Among the Sticks and Bones. In the second book we followed two sisters who are present in book one and are kind of a big thing, and we follow them and their backstory and what happened in this world that they went to. Why did they go there? Like, what's their life? I think I enjoyed it more than the first one because we got to see what this, like, their world, what a sample world is like in this world. And the next two books are two that you've heard of. You've heard me talk about because I did talk about them. And that's The Children of Blood and Bone by Tami Adeyemi and Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tami Adeyemi, which is part of a trilogy by her, an African mythology based trilogy, if that makes sense. I can never have enough of talking about these books. They are so brilliant and I love them so much and they're so beautiful. I can't wait for book 3. I have trouble for some reason explaining what this book is about. We're in a kingdom of Orisha where magic was removed because the king killed a lot of people with magical powers. He just made sure that they are unable to cast spells because, you know, long story. Sad story, long story. Never mind, he's cruel. We don't like him, guys. We follow a bunch of characters who are trying to bring magic back because they're tired of being an oppressed group that is tortured and oppressed. And there are African gods, which I've read no book about, and it was so amazing to discover this new mythology that I never thought I would ever read about because I just never considered it. These books were so well written in my opinion, and the character development was just great, and the world was to fall in love with. Definitely the highlights of this reading year. And then I read 2 books by Aldous Huxley, and I read The Doors of Perception and Brave New World. The Doors of Perception are more of a really, really long essay. So Aldous Huxley took mescaline, which is a psychedelic drug that is very close to his description of a perfect drug, which means that it gives you the ability to escape reality, but it doesn't have really bad effects on your health, and it also is not addictive in most cases, but it hasn't been tested that much at this time. And he describes the whole process, what he felt and how he answered questions and how he reacted to different thoughts. It felt really weird to read about sometimes, but overall it was great insight and really interesting. Overall, I would really recommend it. Really recommend it if you at least think it could interest you and you're into this sort of stuff. Then I'd say it's a great piece of work. And then I read Brave New World at the same time with my book club, which was really fun actually, and it added a lot to the experience of reading to discuss it every few chapters. Brave New World is a story about, it's a dystopian. It's a world in which there's no such thing as sadness or misfortune because everyone is conditioned to be happy and to get what they want and to not have any doubts or to not think too much and to serve as a part of a well-functioning society. It was also very interesting from a psychological point of view because you get to see what happens when people are perfectly happy, which means there is nothing wrong in their lives. Like, what happens when you erase the component of unhappiness, of misery, of dissatisfaction? It's just people become numb, and I actually do think I enjoyed it, though I struggled through some parts, but overall it was very interesting, and I think the world created was very interesting as well, and I did like it, I'd say. Whew, we did it, guys. All the books that I read this year so far, minus the one I don't want to talk about. I hope you guys are having a good reading year. We're having a great time with books and discovering new genres that you like, or reading something you really enjoy. And I hope to see you soon, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye!